So, welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're having a conversation with Elona, CEO of Iris.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It's lovely to meet you.
You
So,
too.
we're going to be talking over the next half an hour about diversity, your journey that you've been on, and the importance of diversity to really decision making and the company's success.
Yes.
Excellent. So,
my favourite topic.
Brilliant. So in terms of diversity, I suppose it's important to go back to the start and understand the journey that you've been on to date and how that's helped shape your views.
Yes, of course. So hi everybody, delighted to be here. Thanks again for having me. So I was born in Albania, and I was there until I was almost 16.
Mm-hmm.
Albania is, for those of you that don't know, is a European country, but very, very different because it was under dictatorship for about 50 years, so nobody was allowed to get in or out of the country. So my upbringing was very, very different.
Okay.
And then when I was 15, I was asked to go and compete for a scholarship to come to the UK. And I was the lucky winner of that scholarship. So I was the one Albanian student that was chosen to come to the UK.
How many entered? Can you remember?
Yeah, so there's a national committee that's run by a group of colleges called the United World Colleges. There's 19 of them across the world. And the national committee goes and looks for talented children, ages 15 to 16, sort of young enough to be molded, old enough to know your mind, to education opportunity. The premise behind these colleges is that education powerful tool we have to unite the world, and you can be very clever and you can be very talented, but if you are born in a country like Albania, then you're never going to get very far. And so the premise of these colleges is equity.
Right.
And making sure that they give opportunities to those that don't have them, underprivileged, underrepresented. So I was really, really super lucky to rock up at school one day. And my headmaster said to me that I had to go and represent our town, my little town called Elbasan, go to the capital, where every child from each of our towns, there's 26 towns in Albania, was equally selected, like myself, to represent their town, as I said, and we went through an assessment center for about a week and got asked lots of different questions. And the result of that is that I won this scholarship. And I have to say, I had no idea really how life-changing that was going to be, how difficult it was going to be, as well as amazing in equal measure. So I arrived to the UK. And
Did you speak English?
No, I didn't speak. Well, I spoke very little, so I could say, my name and this is a cat, but not really have much of a conversation. I hadn't really met people that weren't, for different race or color, because Albania, as I mentioned, was a pretty closed-off country. I hadn't been on a plane before. I had never seen a laptop. And then I arrived, and the college had 200 children from 135 different countries. And all I can say is that, number one, that was my first experience of diversity, true diversity, because my experience until then had been, my world was very, very small. So suddenly, just my world became so much bigger overnight. That is what diversity did to me. It showed me how big the world is, how colorful people's paths were. And this were, as I mentioned, people from 135 different countries. So with that, you get different religions and race and beliefs and experiences. And it was overwhelming.
Did it feel daunting at first?
100%. And in fact, there is a few students that don't make it because you're given this opportunity to sink or swim, really. And it can be quite difficult because you've been handpicked from your country. So all students there are really talented. And now you've come into a world where you are a very, very small fish in a massive ocean. And you can either sink or swim, really, and you can embrace it. Or it can be very daunting. And I decided early on that this was such a unique opportunity, and I had to work really, really hard and make sure that I, not just survived, but thrived as well.
Fully embraced it.
Absolutely loved it. As I said, it was the hardest thing I've done. many aspects of it, being away from home,
homesick
at that
I imagine
age. Homesick, it's a real thing. I know people
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, but it's this tightening of the chest. You wake up in the morning and you just miss everything.
Yes.
And obviously these are the days pre-internet, so it's not like you can email.
Yes.
So you had to write letters or get a fax from home.
A fax.
I know, a fax machine. And I found them the other day, and they've all rubbed off now. The ink has gone. It's so sad.
Them?
Yes, of course.
Right, yes.
There's no mobile phones. So there's
No.
one phone, and your parents can call at 10 o'clock at night when everybody's sort of back in the house, because during the day you're out and about. And there's one phone for everyone, so you're queuing up to make sure that you have those phone calls. So really difficult, but at the same time, absolutely amazing. And what I found out was that our differences are what make us unique and amazing. That if you bring different people around the table, they look at the world with a different pair of eyes. So it makes our world bigger.
Yeah.
And it makes our decision making much, much thorough and better, because they are thinking about things that you have never even thought of. So actually, when you look at something, you have absolutely considered 360 degrees of what the outcome could be. It really helps with innovation and new ideas as well, because, as I said, people look at something with a fresh pair of eyes. And if you just hire people that are exactly like you, you're only going to look at something in one way, and that's not good for business.
Think the same, have the same opinions, and ultimately they'll just agree with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think it's fantastic for aiding collaboration, because you have got different ideas around the table, so you've got to collaborate and listen to somebody, for that decision making, and for innovation fundamentally, because what it does, it just makes you more curious. I remember thinking at the age of 16, as I said, how big the world was, and how I was never going to be the most clever person in the room anymore, and how fascinating it was to see other people's paths and experiences. And I just wanted to learn it all. And it gave me a massive thirst for learning, which I think I still have to today, and a massive curiosity mindset. And I think that's really important. When I hire people, I always hire for curiosity, because if you're curious, then you're never going to be the finished product, which is great. If you're curious, you are always going to keep learning and evolving. And that means that you're going to keep innovating, you're going to grow yourself as a person, you're going to be more useful to a business because you're continuing to learn. So curiosity is so important for a team. And I think it just made me so curious, because suddenly I realized how much more there was to learn. And as I said, it was the foundation of where I am today. I saw firsthand how important it was to surround yourself with different people. And not
be afraid to surround yourself with people cleverer than you.
Oh my God.
Some people find that intimidating and want the ego, like ego massage, as part of it. But
I agree. And I think it comes back down to that growth mindset and that thirst for learning.
Yeah.
Because if you surround yourself with people that are less clever than you, and you are going to be the most clever person around the table, then how do you grow and how do you learn? And I don't think there is a place in business for what I call finished products. There's nothing I can teach a finished product. If you've got a fixed mindset, then you don't really want to grow yourself. So you're no good to me, because my business grows at least 18% every year. So I need people that are growing with the business.
Yes.
If you've got a closed mindset and you see yourself as the finished product, then maybe you're out of date, because actually you've learned things your way and you decide you know something. But actually the world around us disrupts itself and changes itself constantly. We are out of date really, really quickly, like software is, like technology is. Yeah. So actually that thirst for learning and that curiosity is really important. That's why I place emphasis on that, because if you have that, then you want to surround yourself with more clever people, because they make you look good. Those are the people, it's true, those are the people you're going to learn from. And if you have ambitions to go higher and higher as a leader, then you have to surround yourself with the best, so you can learn from them. So they do the things that, you are not very good at, being honest, because we're not all good at everything. Yeah. So you can elevate yourself as well and give yourself new challenges and grow as a person, because that's what people need. They deserve a leader that is growing. They deserve somebody that is humble, that is authentic, and has got a lot of thirst for learning. Nobody wants an arrogant, finished product, no imposter syndrome as a leader. I mean, who would want to aspire to be that? Is my view. And diversity helps you with all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of how does one go about bringing diversity into our world?
So, as I said, for me, having had that first-hand experience and seeing the benefits of diversity, I am genuinely a massive champion of it. And I know people talk about it as a tick in the box. For me, it's what businesses have to do, it's what we must do, rather than just the tick in the box, because the benefits completely outweigh the effort that you go into making sure that you have that diversity around the table. So if I think about my career, I first joined Anderson's after I left university, and I joined them because they were truly diverse. In fact, I remember in the first 2 weeks of joining, they sent every joiner across the globe that has joined that year as part of the graduate program to a place. It's either Segovia in Spain or Eindhoven in Holland. I went to Eindhoven. So I met friends and made friendships with people from across the globe, Israel, Australia, Middle East. And the only thing we had in common is that we were working for this amazing business at the time. And it's so important building those friendships, particularly if you're running a global organization. And putting, faces to names and building those personal relationships was key. So for me, that was super important that I worked for a business that valued diversity. I then spent a long time at Deloitte. Again, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by many friends, because most of my friendships have now come from spending a long time in the Big Four, who came from different paths and weren't the same as me. Highly talented. So I think it's all about meritocracy, to be clear, but different paths. And then I joined a client of mine called Decision, and I joined them because the head of audit committee was a lady. And this was the time when there wasn't a lot of women at the top table. We talk about that today, and we've come a long way. It's nowhere near where we need to be. So I think we have a lot more to do. But 15 years ago, it was even worse than that. So, and it was more unusual. So I got attracted by that because I just was struggling to find role models. I think it's important in life as you grow that you look up to somebody. And they have to be the version of you 5 or 10 years from now. So having female leadership was important to me, talking about diversity. So that's why I joined Decision. And then they hired a female CFO. And that was the first time, again, that I'd worked for a female boss. And that was really, really important for me. And I learned a lot from that. So I knew when I came to Iris that I was going to do something about diversity and start with male and female, percentages. So I think Iris was something like 20-something% female 4 or 5 years ago. We've now got it to 47% female, which for a business of our size, there's 3,000 people here. It's a big achievement, particularly in the area of technology. So in the UK, tech is something like 24% average, which has moved on actually from 19 to 24. So obviously we're seeing a lot of movement there.
And have a female leader within IT.
It's quite unusual. And I wanted to make sure that I, put diversity and equality and equity, because equity is super important, at the table, and that we created an environment where people felt that they could be themselves. And I think if you want diversity, you've got to start with the brilliant basics of building an environment where you don't have a vision of what good looks like, where you don't mold everybody to be that vision, because then you're not hiring for diversity. Then you're hiring for that vision. Instead, if you hire for people that are allowed to be themselves, that can bring themselves to the table, that are curious, that feel empowered, that bring their full self, which means, their vibrant experience of life, their differences to the table, because that's what we must celebrate.
Yeah.
Then you get to more diversity more naturally than having the sort of targeted recruitment policies, which we also tend to have.
Yes.
And then on top of that, you do need to have some targeted recruitment policies.
Yes.
As well.
Well, it's interesting because Alison Rose, CEO of the NatWest Group, I was watching an interview with her recently because she commissioned a report a few years ago into female entrepreneurship and the barriers to really growth and success. And one of the things that she's very strongly believes in is intervention as well. So with her leaders, she sets targets within the P&L around diversity, because you alluded to it earlier. When you're busy, you tend to surround yourself maybe with people that look like you, talk like you, think like you. So it's groupthink. And ultimately, her view is that a company that is the most diverse will be the most successful.
100%. And I think, to be clear, when we talk about hiring people that are different from you, there's got to be something you have in common. Your moral compass has got to be the same. Your values have got to be the same. So at Iris, 4 years ago, we launched our new mission, vision, and values. So our values are called impact. They stand for innovation, making it happen, passion, accountability, customer, and teamwork. So it's important that you hire for the values, because you've got to have something in common. You've got to believe in similar things. You've got to believe that your customers come first, that you've got to work together, that you should be accountable for what you do, that you want to innovate, that you make things happen. But how you do it, and the more diverse you are in the experiences you bring to the table, the stronger a business is.
Yes.
Because then your world becomes bigger, as I mentioned. So I think there's a little bit of both, because fundamentally, meritocracy has got to win. I'm really passionate about that. Being the only woman around the table for a long time, I never wanted to be the tick in the box. And there is there is that risk that you are perceived as being the tick in the box. People have got their minority sort of targets and objectives. So that's not good. Nobody wants to be that. I think having women around the table, having diversity around the table, makes us better. And actually, people are there because they deserve it, and they're going to make the business more successful rather than anything else. So for us, recruitment policies were really important. So what we do is make sure that we have female interviewers, for example, because I think that's really key. We look at the job spec, and I think we all know that if a man looks at a job spec and it's got 10 things in it and they've done 6, they'll go, I'll apply. I've done the majority of these, I'll go and apply. And if a woman looks at it and she might have done 8 or 8.5, she'll go, I haven't done 1 of these or 2 of these. I can't apply.
That is so true, isn't it?
Yeah. And the thing is, we can debate, that can't be the case. The reality is that it is. And sometimes we've just got to accept that we are different. And to get to equity, equality is not enough. 50-50 is not enough. You can't treat a woman exactly the same as a man. You've actually got to understand that her path is different. And she might have a higher imposter syndrome than a man. She might not feel as empowered to apply for that role. Therefore, you've got to make a change in the job spec. And I always say to the team, put down what you really, really need. Don't create a laundry list of what this role must have, because it's going to put people off. And then secondly, instead of saying has experience of, just say has ability to, because everybody must feel able to do something. If you put experience off, then you automatically are cutting out 50% of the applicants. And the reality is there is a talent gap, isn't there? There's fewer and fewer people that have come into the industry. There is a lot more acceleration that's needed as we've come out of COVID and we're all trying to get back to pre-COVID growth rates. So we're all fighting for this war for talent. We're all fighting for the same pool of people. So actually it makes sense to have diversity, because all you're doing is you're widening the pool of people that you're going after. And therefore to do so that, you've got to make the changes at the recruitment stage so that those people are applying in the first place. And then once they apply, let the best man or woman win, because it's about meritocracy. But make sure you do everything you can to bring diversity at the pipeline stage.
Okay. So you've obviously got a strong desire to have a culture that is accepting, not only accepting, but is driving diversity within the workplace. What's been your biggest challenge, I suppose, as a female leader to date?
So I think on a personal level, the biggest challenge has genuinely been being quite lonely at the table.
Right.
I think it's like leaders say that anyway.
I hear that a lot.
I think
it's
every
very
leader says
isolating
that.
Place to be.
Yes, and I think that's the same for whether you're male or female. That's the same.
Yeah.
But I think when you are female, you also have less people that look like you, that have the same challenges as you, that you can share your challenges and experiences with. So that makes you slightly more lonely as well, because you don't always have that network of people. So I think for me, finding the right mentor was really, really important, and somebody I could look up to, and ideally somebody that had been through my path and then got over the other side, so could answer the questions that I would ask myself, like, will my kids hate me one day when they grow up and they go, but mummy, you weren't there at every school event. And then you have the other person go, well, absolutely not. They're actually going to be really proud of you. Yes. And I can genuinely say that now to the next generation of leaders. My children are 7 and 11, but I had a lot of guilt as I was, growing my career, and I tried to be the best mum I could be and the best leader I could be. But you have to compromise, don't you?
Yes.
And so that's been quite challenging, being lonely and not having enough of the same people around the table. So I would say find your tribe, your network of people that lift you up, that you can learn from, and that you can rely upon as well. A network that supports you to do the other things that are not as important as the things you choose to do. So my kids are a priority, and my family for me. My work is a priority. Cleaning,
forget.
Cooking, whatever. Find the right time to do those, or find people that can help you do those.
How do you balance being a mum and heading up a massive organisation such as Iris?
I think so. Over time, I've gotten more and more comfortable in my own skin.
Right.
So I think that helps as well. So you don't have to please everybody, right? You don't have to say yes to every event that you are invited to.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty ruthless with my prioritization and my time. And if it doesn't really help the business 100%, then I'm not going to be able to do something, because then the time I put in there, I'm taking time away from either Iris or my family. So I've got to look at it in that context. And then I say to people that you can't have everything, because life's not like that. Nobody can have everything, whether you're male or female. Nobody can have everything. But you can have most of what you choose is important to you. So I'm pretty ruthless about not missing out on certain things when it comes to the boys. So I can't do drop off and I can't do pick up, and I accept that. And because I can't commit to something that's recurring. And that's okay for me. It might not be okay for somebody else, but for me, it's okay. Yeah. But I'm never going to miss out on their Christmas party or their cross country or their swimming lesson or whatever it is where parents are invited, because those things matter. Yeah. It matters to them when other parents are attending and you're not attending, then they feel singled out. So they matter to me, that matters to them. So I am ruthless about making sure that I protect those things. And it's not that hard. You get a calendar at the start of each term.
Your diary out.
I lock it in my diary. I'm pretty open about it as well. I remember coming to Iris. I joined Iris in November. And by December, you usually have the nativity plays. And I said to my PA, oh, can you put this in my diary? It's the boys' nativity play. Bear in mind, it's like 8:30 till 9:30 in the morning. It's not exactly the biggest investment of time. And she said to me, shall I put it down as a doctor's appointment? And I said, absolutely not. And it tells you about the culture that maybe either used to exist or that we allowed to exist, if I'm honest. So I said, absolutely not. I am going to work a lot for this business. I don't give it 8 hours a day. This is my life.
Yes.
Iris is in my top 3 things that are important to me. So when I need an hour out or 2 hours out or whatever it is, then I'm going to take it. Because at the same time, when it's, playing tennis or watching football at the weekend, I'll have my phone on me and I'll be answering emails as well. So I think creating that culture where people are judged on output rather than input is really important. And COVID was really great for that, because now we have the flexibility, and for as long as we deliver, I think people actually are, well, certainly I encourage my teams to spend as much time as they can with the family, because eventually they get resentful, don't they, if they give up on those things that matter the most. So so choose what really matters. You can't have it all, but you can have most of what's important, and then ruthlessly be super protective of that. Don't ever give that up, because I don't think, we work in an environment where there is a patient on the operating table. Let's face it, it's not like I'm doing open heart surgery, and if I left at that point in time, somebody, like, what we deal with, you can organize your diary in the best way where you can be there for what matters, and then obviously give up some of your free time later on if you have to give back. But I think that's important. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, finding the network of people that support you is super important, so you can outsource the things that you don't have to focus on, like the cleaning, like the cooking. You get paid more. The higher up you get paid more. Grab yourself a taxi when you're going out, so that you're safer. You're not having to put more stress on yourself. Get a personal trainer if you don't have the time to go to the gym. I don't, because it'll take me an hour to get there, come back, all of that, and time is important. Then have a personal trainer come to your home. I think you can make it work and use the money that you're getting paid to make your life easier, because that's what it's there for, I think. So going back to your question, so being lonely and dealing with the guilt of motherhood, etc., has certainly been a challenge. I think at Iris, the challenge has been more one of realizing that you can put some policies in place to hire the best people and policies in place to retain the best people. We have things like returnship programs to go and specifically target mums, for example, who've given up work for a few years to look after the family and now maybe don't feel as confident to come back in the workforce. So we do that. However, there is still a problem at the pipeline stage.
Right.
There is still an issue with not enough people from diverse backgrounds applying in the first place. And that's because as leaders, we haven't done enough around those that are underprivileged and underrepresented. We have been fishing in the same pool for a very long time, and we are widening that pool at a very, very slow rate. So we decided about 18 months ago at Iris to focus all of our CSR efforts that we do as a business towards empowering the next generation, and fundamentally those that come from underprivileged backgrounds or underrepresented groups to feel ready for workforce. It's not going to help Iris today. It might help businesses like Iris 10 years from now, but as a leader, you have a responsibility. This is not, I'm in a privileged position, and I have to use this privilege. It's not a nice to have. It's not something I should do in my spare time. I have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that the legacy I leave behind is far better than the one I found, and that one day the next generation of leaders don't have to talk about diversity like it's something to talk about, that it has happened more naturally. And to do that, we have to look at those that are 6-year-olds today or 12-year-olds today and get them ready.
Schools, you're doing programs to
So we have 12,000 schools as our customers. So that's great that we have access to the schools. We also have about 3,000 people that work at Iris worldwide, and we give everybody 3 days off a year to do charity work. They can choose to do what they want to do with that, because obviously people have personal causes. But if they don't know what to do, then a lot of what we try and support is around the next generation. So they might go to schools to teach them about a career in tech, to just give them a view of what does it mean to be in a business, particularly because people don't understand that actually to run a tech business, only 20% of your workforce actually know how to code. I don't know how to code. The rest of it, you still need a marketing department, a sales department, a finance department. So actually, to work for a tech business, you can choose whatever path you want, whatever's your passion. You can still come and work in a tech business. We then bring a lot of schools at Iris, so we host 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds to come and have a day here to see what it's like and take part in different departments. We then partner with charities like Bookmark, so they teach children how to read. It's appalling the percentage of children that leave school without knowing how to read, and if you can't read, you're not going to succeed. It's a basic requirement for you to live and make sure that you grow yourself. So we do that, and we offer time. So our people are volunteers teaching little children how to read, but we also offer money. And then we also partner with charities like Place to Be for mental well-being, children in need. Very recently, Pudsey, the new Pudsey, doesn't now have the eye mask that told us that he was ill. Because actually mental illness you can't really see. So that's really important that we focus on that for the next generation, because if you are coming from an environment that is not focusing on that, then again, we are not going to move very far. And some of the underprivileged children that we work with, you can make a lot of impact by giving your time. And then we give scholarships to Salford University, and Wigan College. We have a great office in Manchester. There's Manchester University there, quite affluent area, but then next to it is Salford, which is underprivileged. And so by offering these scholarships, we are giving them the opportunity to go to uni in the first place. And then we offer apprenticeships as well and hackathons. We do the same with Albanian University, because that's obviously something that I'm passionate about. We partner with Princess Trust. Again, I'm sure you know about that, and how there is a lot of entrepreneurs that maybe have a fantastic idea but haven't had the help. So by doing all of these things at every stage, hopefully what we're doing is empowering that next generation to feel better prepared to come and apply for that job. So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the quality of diversity at the pipeline is far better. And we don't have to go and force it to make it happen. And it's more natural because, as I said, meritocracy has to win. Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
I guess one final point then, obviously we've covered a lot of ground there in terms of your own journey, what diversity means to you, and balancing being a mum and an entrepreneur as well. What piece of advice would you give to other female entrepreneurs out there who are going on this journey?
I would say back yourself. That's really, really important. I think one of the biggest challenges as we grow is to stay focused on what you want to achieve and cut the noise. Don't worry about what people think or what people say. Give yourself permission to say yes all the time. Whatever opportunity is thrown your way, just say yes and figure out later on how you might want to do it. Because actually, if you made the wrong decision, it's always reversible. There are very few decisions in life, I can't think of any, that are irreversible. As I mentioned, for most people, it's not like we're dealing with life and death. So say yes all the time, cut the noise and back yourself, and genuinely have great self-awareness and get to know yourself and figure out what you're really good at and what you're not so good at, and then play to your strength. Don't waste your time bettering yourself on areas that you're not good at. There is a good reason why you're not good at it. You got to your age and you got to where you are. And maybe you're not passionate about it. You don't have natural curiosity about those things. So learn enough so that nobody fools you. But beyond that, stop focusing on areas you don't know how to do. Hire other amazing people for that and focus just on what you do best. Because that's the difference between being good and amazing. And you succeed if you do the things you want to do, if you're passionate about something, if you're loving what you're doing, and if you're focusing on the stuff you don't know how to do, you're not going to love it, are you? And you're not going to be that successful. You're going to be average at best. So I would say play to those strengths and choose others with different strengths to cover you for the areas of development, whatever we call them, you may have.
That's great advice. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. It's been great. Thank you.